Nathan, big announcement. I'm sure a lot of things came up, in the course of the announcement, and so we didn't really get into the issues. Now, Malaysia have confirmed that three very strong men, three billionaires, if I may put it that way, who steer the affairs of the board. You have CEO of Joshop Construction, Rockshaw, and then CEO of Rigworld, all forming a three-man board expected to steer the affairs of Kumasi and play that oversight role as far as things are concerned at Kumasi Asante. Let me bring in Michael Asaribudu. Michael, good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Raymond, and thanks for having me.
Great. Michael, I mean, ever since this appointment was made, we've not really picked your thoughts on that decision itself and, the men involved. Bring us up to speed on what you know prior to this appointment, what informed this appointment, and the three men, who they are.
Sporty FM.
Well, so the appointment is to fall in line with the GFA's club licensing regulations, is to ensure that whatever has been requested by the club licensing requirements will be satisfied by every football club that has agreed to play professional football. And there are times where they allow clubs to put in place ad hoc measures to run affairs, but when that time is near elapsing, they expect these clubs to correct them. And one is Asante Kotoko. Initially, they had a board during the time of Nana Amponsa, and to some extent, the board was collapsed by Otumfuo, and then he constituted an IMC. At that period, the GFA allowed them, they called it a transitional phase, to transition from the IMC to a board. So they allowed the IMC to operate as a de facto board and also as a management of the club. Now, the period was near elapsing, and so the club needed to institute the appropriate structures to ensure that they will not fall foul of what the regulations say, and that is what they have done. Now, in naming this three-member board, the intention is that they will add to it going forward. But in the interim, this three-member board will have immediate oversight responsibility on the running of Asante Kotoko. But they will work together with the IMC so that when the season ends, then the IMC will peacefully hand over to the board for them to continue with what they have to do. So the board has been tasked with the long-term sustainability of Asante Kotoko and also restoring the club to its former glory. And so when the season ends, the thinking is that the board would add up in terms of the number, and then two will also go ahead to appoint several key positions or people to fill several key positions in the club. They will constitute a new management team. They will have to appoint a new chief executive officer. And such talks are currently ongoing behind the scenes. Now, the men who have been named, Mr. James Osei Brown, Mr. Kwesi Osei Fori, and then Kofi Amuaban, as the chairman, the vice chairman, and the member respectively, they have previous knowledge of working within such a structure at Asante Kotoko. So they are not new faces. They are members of the former board who have been brought on board to come and then plan the way forward. So they come with a previous knowledge of the club and how things were, and they will also be briefed on the current existence or current happenings at the club so that it will inform them in taking the right decisions regarding the way forward.
Right. Now, looking at the role they are supposed to play, immediately, what's the target and what do they seek to achieve between now and the end of the season?
One, as it stands now, immediately they take control of the club and they will need to do a lot. One, how Kotoko climaxes their season. They need to play a role in ensuring that, although the belief is that the Premier League title race is not something that Kotoko can actively play a part in, because they had an opportunity to narrow the gap between themselves and those ahead of them. And then they fluffed it when they played at home against Vision FC. That was on Sunday. And the thinking now is maybe we just need to finish the season on a high, but not necessarily pursue any target. The FA Cup, they are out. So as it stands, it is looking more likely as Asante Kotoko will end the season without a trophy. But they need to end the season well on the field of play. Then they need to also look at the way forward in terms of the technical direction of this team. Initially, the IMC had wanted to go ahead and appoint a new coach. But since the board was then going to be constituted, the chief of staff of Menchia, Mr. Kofi Bedu, stepped in and said they should hold on to any coaching appointments, talk of the IMC.
Right.
And so subsequently, the board was named. Now, the board will work together with the IMC, and then they will ask for certain recommendations regarding how the technical direction of a club should be shaped towards, and then who are the right people that should come on board. Names have been suggested. Names have been running through the rumor mill. And what I know, they will constitute a structure that has, 1, a technical director, 2, a head coach, and 2 assistant coaches. The names that have been thrown around includes Ibrahim Tanko of Mediama, Bashir Hayford of Heart of Lions, Daniel Nieje, a former Asante Kotoko player who worked previously with the Elmina Sharks, their women team, and is now an assistant coach at Heart of Lions.
Yeah.
These are names that have come up in terms of those that Asante Kotoko are targeting. So in this case, the structure will be Bashir Hayford as the technical director, Ibrahim Tanko, if all goes to plan, will serve as the head coach. Nieje will add up to Hamza Obain, and then there will be the assistant coaches. It means Prince Owusu does not necessarily have a future at Asante Kotoko. Another structure that's been suggested in terms of names like CK Akono have come into the picture. And some other technical team members have also been mentioned as a likely people that Asante Kotoko will appoint to be part of their technical team. But the structure will be a technical director, a head coach, and 2 assistant coaches. Then they will also have to appoint a CEO. The CEO names have gone around, including former CEO Nanaya Hamponsa. George Efie's name has also been part of the conversations. But these are deliberations that are going on behind the scenes, consultations with Menchia, consultations with persons close to these people, and to some extent, there have been physical contact between the Kotoko board and then some of these individuals that have mentioned their names. The former Heart of Lions coach, the former Accra Lions coach, James Francis, has also had his name in the picture in terms of those that Kotoko are looking at to become part of their technical team structure.
Michael, Nathan here. I just want to find out something. So is this? Are we seeing the final days of the IMC? Can we conclude that, or is that assumption correct? Are we seeing the final days of the current IMC?
Yes, the IMC will not continue beyond this season. Their mandate will expire at the end of this season, and it looks like the board will take control. Now, will some members of the IMC added to the board at the end of the campaign? That looks very much likely. There have been names that have gone around, but I don't want to speculate as it stands now. But the thinking is that there are members of the IMC who Menchia feels still have a role to play in the running of Asante Kotoko. And so they will be added to the board. There is even an element of a supporters leadership that will also be added to the board. There's a 3-member board as it stands now, but the numbers are going to increase when the season ends. They will add to it, and then the numbers will grow. So that is how things will be. So the IMCS will not continue, but some members of the IMC will likely continue to play a part in the running of Asante Kotoko.
Just a final question, Michael. In terms of the how things will happen, from next season and all. So there's this 3-member board. I don't know whether others will be part. How will their relationship with Menchia be like? How would their relationship be? How would that relationship between that board and the Great King be like? Would they still take directives from the great king, or they are at liberty to call the shots at Asante Kotoko and decide what they think is necessary and fit for the club's progress?
Well, it's similar to previous arrangements. So what is going to happen is the IMC had direct contact with Menchia because there was no board. So deliberations, discussions revolving around the club were held between top IMC members, including Nana Penkra Kwesiewa, who is the IMC chair, and then the top brass at Menchia. When they had reports that they had to submit at the end of the season, it was done in that manner. When the IMC finishes with their term and then the board takes over, the conversation or the structure or the chain of command will be Menchia, the board, and then the new management team that will be constituted. That is how it's going to be. So any management team that will be in charge of the day-to-day running or the day-to-day operations of the club will not have direct contact with Menchia again. It is going to be through the board, then to Menchia. So if there's any direct interaction about Asante Kotoko between two parties or groups or structure, it is going to be the board and then Menchia. Now, these board members will report to Menchia through the chief of staff. They will not have direct access to the great king. So that is how the structure is going to be like. And as I said, the numbers will increase. Now, as per the previous arrangement, when boards are constituted, they are not given seed money to run the club with. So it means they will need to look for their own money to run affairs of the club. Ideally, people have suggested that when you constitute a board, maybe there should be a seed money of, let's say, 5 million Ghana cedis. This is the money available. Take it and use it to run Kotoko, grow the money, and also grow the club. But as it stands now, they will need to start from scratch, zero. There is nothing. So they will need to raise their own funds and then run the club with. That is how things are going to be. And that will involve anything around the playing body, the technical team, and also the infrastructure development of a club. There are talks about developing the Adakojachi training grounds, which I have already mentioned that it is a factor in the numerous injuries that the club is having to deal with. A lot of the players suffer these knocks that eventually affects them in games when they get injuries. They suffer them from the training grounds, and it will need a major facelift. There was an eye-opening session prior to the House of Folk game when the Asanteman Council visited the team at their training grounds. They were exposed to the reality of how substandard the Adakojachi training grounds is, because those who came were high-powered dignitaries. They were high-functioning chiefs. The Banti Mahene, who is in charge of the Greater Kumasi traditional area, and then some other great chiefs who were part of it. They came and they did not have a befitting place to sit. They had to sit in a makeshift dugout, and then they were exposed to the direct sun. Per traditional guidelines or whatever it is not right for a chief to sit directly under the sunlight. And that is how come most of the chiefs have umbrellas that cover them when they sit in public gatherings and all that. So when they went through such a period, I knew that clearly it would open the eye of the chief of staff and some of these chiefs that maybe Kotoko are far behind in terms of infrastructural growth, and they will need to look at developing Adakojachi. And it forms part of the mandate of the board. They are not just in to put together a team that can win on the field of play. They are also in to drive the club on a certain path that embraces growth on all aspects. So infrastructure-wise, playing body, sporting-wise, they need to make sure that there is growth in the club Asante Kotoko. And they have no money to do this. They will need to raise their own money. And this is where the problem mostly stems from.
I wanted to ask you that because, Ray and Michael, we've had these scenarios play themselves out
over the years,
right? There's no seed money. You are giving this person the liberty to go and find their own money. And then many years down the line, we come back to hear stories. Kotoko Demekao, I've spent money, Misika Kokem, and all of those things. Michael, why do you think that that play is always, or like that's almost always the sequence? And two, what can be done to ensure that this time round that same carte blanche doesn't come back to create problems for Asante Kotoko?
But Nathan, before Michael comes,
yeah,
you see, when I read out the list, I mentioned the positions or the role they play,
yes,
in terms of business. You have a CEO of Raymond Group.
Okay,
He's a billionaire. You have Christian Selfori, CEO of Rockshore, billionaire. And then you have James Osei Brown, Joshua Construction, another billionaire.
Yes.
So Kotoko have gone back to the model where they pick somebody who has a fat bank account,
yes,
steer the affairs of the club, rather than the model they've been running.
Yeah,
they're running now,
but you see,
going to Messiah for money.
Okay.
So they've just gone back to what they used to do in the past, which brings about the Kotoko Demeka and all. But I'm not sure. Looking at the clout of these men,
yes,
Kotoko will owe them at any point.
No, but Ray, you get the point I'm making. The point is that you've given them this liberty.
Yeah.
They should go and find money.
Yes.
Find money for the club.
Eventually, they'll use their own money.
Very good. So eventually, they will have to dig into their coffers.
Of course.
And that is where the problems start. That's why I'm asking Michael what he makes of this play or this.
It's the same model. It's the same model that used to be in the past. But this time around, I think maybe because of the weight of these guys,
Ray,
they would not do certain things. Because Kofi Aban, I'm not sure would come out and say Kotoko owe him X amount of money or what, because he's still investing. Even as of now, he's still investing in the club. So I'm sure Messiah have figured all of them out very well to be confident enough to believe that, look, these men have what it takes to bring a CEO, bring an MD or CEO who will do a good job. Okay. Again, with the financial muscle of these three men, I'm sure they are confident that, look, these guys would invest in Kotoko as if it was their club without any issues. I mean, maybe Michael has another story to tell us on this one. But Michael, let's hear you on this matter.
Well, so as you rightly mentioned, these are personalities who are well-to-do in terms of their businesses. Rockshore International Limited, one of the most successful contract mining services company in Ghana, and have a lot of deals with reputable mining firms across Ghana. And even to an extent, they extend their operations beyond Ghana. They operate also in other West African countries as well. So if you expect Mr. Kwesi Osei to come on board and then invest his money, as a typical businessman, he will likely come on board as an investor. So it might be a sponsorship sort of. So maybe Rockshore or any of his companies would invest the money as a sponsor, and then they will also have to benefit from the mileage that Asante Kotoko has to give them. It is not different from how Kofi Aban will also approach things. Raymond, there were some previous talks that Raymond had wanted to be the chef sponsor of Asante Kotoko at a point in time, and so he could likely also come on board as a sponsor, invest an amount of money at the start of every season into the club, and so it will not be like a donation sort of quote unquote into the club without any sort of benefit that they would derive from it. That again, you have to look at Joshua, and Joshua also runs a construction company. If he has to invest something into Asante Kotoko, for instance, talks about the Adakoja upgrade, he can take charge of this project, can seek the finances and everything, and maybe he would do it as part of a sponsorship campaign or package. So these are all part of ways where they can invest into the club. But that aside, they have been tasked to find sponsors who will be willing to commit resources into running the club and not necessarily invest their own money into it. It is when they are not making headway in terms of seeking sponsorship, then they will look at initiatives like pumping in their own money into running the club. There's a bit different from how Kwame Kyei ran Asante Kotoko then. During Kwame Kyei's time, when he was in charge of the overall running of a club, when they hadn't constituted a board, Kwame Kyei was passionate about the club to the extent that he pumped his own money into running the club. And that led to the situation where when the time came that they had to constitute a board, although he was going to head the board, but he knew there were other well-to-do personalities on the board, and it would not mean Kwame Chain unilaterally takes decisions regarding Asante Kodoko. Then it came to then Modemeka and the Muntia. Then it became okay and the Masheka I hope you get the point. So it wouldn't have to get to that extent. These are pro-businessmen who understand the nitty-gritties of doing business, investing, and donations. So they will need to distinguish between monies that they are pumping into the club and categorize it properly. So is it a donation or is it an investment that they will have to also get their due from? Or is it a sponsorship? They will need to classify these payments that they will be pumping into the club one way or the other. And I think it is not just about the board. It's also about persons who work within the Asante Kodoko structure. I believe that these well-to-do businessmen have a certain network of friends, colleagues, or other businesses. So it is easier for them to pitch Asante Kodoko to some of their friends who will be interested, or parties who will be interested, or groups, or even outside companies who will be interested in forming partnerships or running some kind of arrangement with Asante Kodoko one way or the other. That is a direction Menchia expects the team to embark on. It is not like we are giving you money, run the club, but try and find the money. We'll use our backing, because if you get the official seal from Menchia, it is powerful, and there is no office that will not take it serious. If you send that seal, they're looking for sponsorship. And Kodoko have a marketing team, they have a marketing manager, and he is supposed to ensure that they table a proposal that is juicy enough that can convince a lot of companies to pump money into. Kodoko should be run that way. So in as much as some of us have reservations about handing the club to individuals who are very rich or wealthy, and they're not giving them anything, and they will need to build from scratch, I also feel initiatives like this is also teaching the leadership of the club how to fish and not necessarily hand them fish. So I think with this approach, it means they will need to look for resources and run the club with. Unless they don't make headway, they don't make any positive inroads in that aspect, then they will think about pumping their own money into running the club. As it stands, Kodoko don't have any money available to run the club. So they will need to look at ways and means. They will need to be creative. They will need to be innovative to find resources to run the club with.
Well, I have a question. My next question would focus on the appointment of a CEO. But when you say Kotoko don't have money to run the club, presently, how is the club being financed?
Well, the IMC seeks funds and support from Menchia primarily. Yes, they have sponsors, Produquan and the others, but if I mention the arrangement and the package that they are offering, it is not enough to run the club for even a month. So they fall heavily on Menchia for financial issues or financial support to run the club. And that is how things have been. So the Menchia also feels it should not continue. That is not sustainable. That at the end of every season, you submit your report and submit your budget. Then we need to scrutinize the budget, approve it, and then we need to give you money to go and run Kodoko. Kodoko should be in a position where it wins itself off Menchia and then is able to run on its own, because the club is huge. And if things are done appropriately, then they should not go through what they are going through now. So that is how things are. So the new CEO, the management team that will be constituted, and the board will be tasked with making Asante Kodoko commercially appealing to prospective sponsors and then investors or partners who want to do business with them.
Michael, you mentioned the new structure, and you spoke about the appointment of a CEO.
Okay.
Now, names have come up. Nana Amponsa's name has come up. Japanese Mafia, George Efriye, he's been heavily linked to the job. A few other names have popped up. I'm sure you'd help us with some. But, from what you've heard, who seems to be inching closer to that role, becoming the new CEO of Kumasi Asante Kotoko?
Well, the name Nana Amponsa gained some kind of traction when the board was named, because he had a solid relationship with some of them, the likes of Kofi Amuaban, Mr. Kwesi Osei. He had a solid relationship with them, and they believe that they are firm believers in the know-how of Nana Amponsa in football administration, and they would love him to be part of the Asante Kotoko setup if they are now in charge of running the club. But judging by how he exited the club when his time ended and how the politics have been played, it is difficult to convince Menchia that Nana should return. That is where the issue is. But left to the members of the board as it stands now, there will be absolutely no problem on their part if they are to bring on board Nana Amponsa. But every decision they take will need to be rubber stamped by Menchia. And so that is where we are not so clear in terms of whether Nana will come or not. Then the issue of George Ayew is a name that has been in the mix for a very long time, even before Nana Amponsa came. He's often been rumored to be a party that interests Menchia because of what he's capable of doing. And then he definitely is rated very high. And many feel that, judging by where the club is and where they need to get to, he is somebody who can help transform their fortunes. And again, those who are putting in a word for him speak of his influence in territories like Japan, for instance, and now he can bring on board partners who would be willing to invest into Asante Kotoko in various ways, and then see that the club is able to also generate enough revenue to run with in that contest. So George Ayew is highly rated among those who have a say in decisions like this, and he looks like the sure favorite to land the CEO position. Talks will likely be had. I know that contact has been made, an approach has been made, an interest has been registered. So on both parts, one is maybe lobbying is the right word. One is lobbying, and the other party is also interested in what is happening. So there seems to be that mutual understanding, that coordination. Okay, we want you. Okay, I'm interested. Now they will have to discuss the way forward and look at whatever is going to happen regarding that. But these are the two main names that have come up. But the other names that are also on the side. But if there will be any coaching any appointment of a chief executive officer, if there is any other name apart from George Ayew, I'll be very surprised.
Well, it's looking interesting at Kumasi Asante Kotoko. We'll see how things play out in the coming weeks.
But Michael, just to backtrack, right? For the uninitiated, okay, can you just give us just a summary of Nana Amponsa's exit, the conditions under which he left? Because you made the point that you mentioned that he left on very acrimonious terms,
right?
And so you wonder if that worked. For somebody who doesn't know the story, just in a few sentences, how is it that he left in those acrimonious situations? What exactly caused the split between Nana Amponsa and Asante Kotoko as a club?
Well, Nana was known as a person who divided opinions at board level. There were some of the board members who really loved his radical approach, how he took the FA on at a point in time, how he kind of used Asante Kotoko as a political tool to drive home a lot of points, make a case. Some loved it. Some also on the board did not really buy into how he was running the club. There were some who felt that for all that he was able to bring on board, he was also taking a lot from the club. The issue of his monthly salary, the issue of some of the expenditure were issues that actually brought on board a lot of quote unquote, for want of a better word, quarrels at the board level. So the board was heavily divided at a point in time, and they did not unite to work together to bring success to the club. So I remember when Otumfuo was collapsing the board, he expressed his disappointment at how things had unraveled, and he felt they did not really handle things right. And he also was heavily briefed on some of these developments, and Nana Amponsa being at the center of everything. He was not sacked. His tenure expired. and then Mensah decided against extending it. That is the situation. But when he left, and then they were going through some of the reports, the financial statements, and everything they had left behind, Otunfo was not so pleased about it. Some are very public. His disapproval of some of the figures and everything. And Otunfo has a financial background. So some of the figures and the discussions around it, there are some where he even said it. It's public knowledge that he was not so pleased with the figures.
Okay.
How they incurred some losses and all that. And that led to that famous statement.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember that.
Exactly. So his departure brought on board a lot of issues, and it even informed the decision of Mensah to run the club on their own.
Yeah.
And that led to the formation of the IMC.
Okay.
And Otunfo deciding that he will self-finance the running of the club as it stands now. So it is difficult that in less than 5 years after he left, things will come down to the extent that he will be returned to the position. And he's not the only one who has come to Asante Kotoko, divided opinions, become a very popular figure. And then people have actually made a move for his return, which eventually it falls out. Herbert Mensah is one.
Okay.
Again, he's a similar figure, radical.
Yeah.
He drove home a lot of points. He was able to garner a lot of support among the Kotoko fan base, brought on board a lot of commercial partners and all that. But then again, he was not really popular at Mensah, and it caused some issues. When he left, they were told that we need Herbert Mensah back, we need him back. But today, it is not returned in any capacity to help run Asante Kotoko. You can also say similar for KK Sapon. He personally, he resigned, wrote a letter to Mensah, and they actually signed under his name that there was never going to be an instance where KK Sapon will have a way back into Asante Kotoko, into any term Mensah has to oversee and all that. So that makes Nana Ponce's case very difficult for him to bounce back. And when he left, the pro Nana Ponce group, who were Asante Kotoko supporters, they antagonized the IMC. They were heckling the IMC. They were frustrating the efforts of the IMC. On social media, they were organizing X spaces, literally dissing the efforts and everything the IMC was doing. And I want to believe Mensah will likely be briefed on all these developments. So to me, I see it as extremely difficult for Nana Amponsa to return to Asante Kotoko as the chief executive officer. But it is football. Never say
Michael,
never. His name will definitely be mentioned, but the approval, I doubt if it will come.
Well, Michael, beyond the names, Nana Amponsa and George Efriye, is there any talk about Fred Achi around that CEO role?
Lobbying, again, names will be mentioned, but it depends on the backing that you get and the support you get. Who is putting in a word for you? Who is actually making sure that you are well represented in those discussions? That is crucial. Achi is one of the beloved of Mensah. He knows people who are close to those at the top. And I wouldn't say he's popular, but judging by what he has done. And I remember there was an incident when Poli died and there were visitations and everything. Achi, you see, the GFA delayed in visiting the Asante Kotoko team, and the IMC led by Nana Pinkra were very embittered. They were peeved. Literally, they were very angry. Now, when the GFA eventually showed up and then they had to apologize, guess who was leading them? It was Frederick Echamponachi. He was the one leading them. And he had to render the apology on behalf of the FA and go. So he's someone who has built himself to that level. But the politics in it and everything, he looks a candidate, but maybe he's a distant candidate in terms of those who he's a distant favorite, in terms of those who will get it. The front runner definitely is George Efriye. But Archie's name is also part of the conversation.
Right. George Ayew will be an interesting appointment because, Nathan, if you follow George Ayew very well, he's been around the sports space for a very long time.
Oh, yes.
To the level of, exco member, vice president of GFA. He's really been there, done it all. But at club level, not too much can be said about him. From Gamba All Blacks to Oko United, Imota. Otiman Planners. He's been around Oko United, right? And then Susubribi. Yes, Liberty then yes. Susubribi. It's been there and about. But in terms of really getting to the top with the club side, we haven't seen too much of that. So it remains an interesting test, though. But George Ayew, without doubt, you won't doubt his experience.
He does have the experience. But I think, from everything Michael is saying, you can tell that running the Asante Kotoko shop is not only experience.
Yeah, you need
right. It's not only like football experience. You need to understand the politics
around Minchia.
You need to understand the Minchia politics, and you have to learn to play it very, very, very well. And whoever they choose, I think that person must understand the politics of the club. But I think when everything settles down, and I'm sure Michael, might agree or disagree, I think that there needs to be a proper conversation about the ultimate direction for Asante Kotoko. Because we often talk about, running our clubs well, we need to respect best practice, we need to do world standard things. So there must be a conversation as to where Asante Kotoko, where does it want to go? What does it want to look like? You understand? Yeah. Because the biggest clubs, I won't even say around the world, the biggest clubs on the continent run on a very solid structure. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And a structure that has to exist if any proper corporate body wants to succeed. So whichever iteration it is, you see certain core management principles running through. So I think that Asante Kotoko will have to ask themselves, okay, now we've gone round and round, we've come back to this play of or this method, give the club to some people who love the club. If they have money, they'll go and find money from elsewhere, blah, blah, blah. But I think there has to be a very permanent decision, and that decision has to be taken very quickly on, look, what do we want to do with this club? Yeah. Is it that we get a CEO, because Kojo Mensah believes that get a wealthy person with football management experience, hand the reins of the club in terms of like almost total control of the club to the person, and let that person decide on the sporting side, the business side. Some people say you can marry the traditional side, because I say that the traditional side doesn't really have to be very involved. The traditional side is to give the club a certain look and feel, and to give it a certain mystique. But the modern game is premised on data, science, and core corporate principles. So I think that Kotoko will really have to take a bold step and say, okay, this is where we are going. We stick to this. We add the mystique of the traditional side, and we are good to go. Because they've come back to this 3-member board for now. I don't know whether the numbers will increase, whether they will add more people. Yeah, it would. Then you have to bring a CEO. And we all know what we saw previously, this schism between board chair and CEO, and I call the shots, I run the club. So we'll see. They are back here. I hope that this time it plays out well for Kotoko.
Michael, this board will be faced with another decision to make, appointing a new coach. Now, names have come up. We've heard the likes of Maxwell Kunedu. We've heard the likes of Ibrahim Tanko. Yes, Tanko.
Michael did say Ibrahim
Tanko has come up. There's also talk about Siki Akuno, that if he's going to leave Goma here. And then there's also talk about the return of Prosper Ogum. I mean, take us through the names we've heard, and if there's any truth in some of the front runners we've had, like Prosper Ogum and possibly Maxwell Kunedu.
Well, Ogum is not returning. Take my word for it. He won't return to Asante Kotoko. When the rumors started coming in, contact was made, discussions, and he's not returning to Asante Kotoko. I think he's focused on other projects. He wants to do different things. And Maxwell Kunedu, let's see when the season comes to an end. Initially, when Zito contemplations were made about him staying or Zito be relieved of his role, Maxwell Kunedu's name came into the picture. the response his camp gave was he would love to start anew, start preseason and everything. He wouldn't love to come in and continue with the season. So let's see how things end when Marcel Konedu has to do it. Now, I know Ibrahim Tanko was in town somewhere last week.
Is Sporty FM.
He's from Kumasi, I must emphasize.
Okay.
But his visit to Kumasi sparked a lot of speculations. Conversations were had between himself and some other people. I don't know if it was about Asante Kodoko, but Ibrahim Tanko has been in Kumasi the past week, and that is how come his name also became a prominent feature in the conversation. Now, the appointment of a new coach was judged by the direction Asante Kodoko wants to embark on. And what the club wants to do, they want to invest heavily in youth because they have come to the agreement that their model of targeting top performing GPL players at other clubs is not necessarily paying off. It happens that a player hits a certain form, you bring him on board, and he struggles to replicate that form at Asante Kodoko. One of them is Emmanuel Entry. He is a player that has not really performed to the expectation of many Asante Kodoko fans and even the management. Again, players like Isaac Minta, they have not even been fit enough to justify whether they are ready to play for the club. So what a lot of the fans advocated for, and they petitioned the IMC, which the IMC has taken serious, is to pay very close attention to the developments of the Asante Kodoko youth team.
Yeah.
And the recent sale of Bernard Somoa to Celta Vigo has also been an eye-opener. And they feel that is a model that they will want to chart. It is not like they won't invest into signing players, but if Kodoko are buying any player, then they will be rest assured that he's a player who would actually add value to their team.
Michael,
behind the scene, yeah.
Hold that up for me. Let me go on to the lines and let's speak to Owusu Bempa. Yes, let's speak to Owusu Bempa. He is a seasoned sports journalist, a veteran journalist, we call him sometimes. So, Owusu Bempa is on the line. Let me quickly get onto the line and pick his thoughts on development at Kotoko so far. Good morning to you, Senior, and welcome to Sporty Breakfast.
Good morning to you, and listeners.
Great. It's been another season where we've had the same old issues at Kotoko, where it's ugly head again. Coaches sacked, performance not as impressive as many expect. IMC a bit all over the place with their decisions. I mean, what do you make of what has happened at Kotoko again this season with regards to all of the decisions that have happened around the club?
Well, good morning once again to you and to your listeners. I think it's nothing different from the traditional ritual of permanent recycling of management team at any point in time. This thing happens almost, the last 20-something years. If you can go back and check the records, it's like almost every 3 years you see some of these things coming up. And things are not going well. You change the board, you bring in management team, let's start science, let's start this and blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. So I don't think it's anything different. And it doesn't surprise me that we are seeing what we are hearing what we are hearing right now.
Now, from where you sit, what seems to be the problem with Kumasi Asante Kotoko? Because this recycling has been going on for quite a bit. What seems to be the real cause of all of the chop and change we see at Kumasi Asante Kotoko?
I think the ownership hasn't got the organizational structure right. That's before that's the way I see it. That Kotoko has not had, over the period for the last probably 25 years, ownership hasn't had.
This is Sporty FM, the voice of sport.
So there's no consistency. At any point in time, you see flip-flopping, going back and forth, shifting to left, right, back and center. And none of these have even given the team any results, not domestically, not internationally. The team's international reputation seems to have gone down. There are a lot of, if you look at around the African continent, I'm sure you should go to countries like Kenya, Uganda, Togo, even Ghana. A lot of the youth from 17 to about 25 to 30 years know much about Ali, know much about Raja Casablanca, Italy, Mamelodi Sundowns and some of the other emerging clubs than they do of Kotoko. I'm sure those who know about Kotoko will only read them from archives and not because the team is has gotten to a point where just a message can give you an idea what the team represents. So virtually, the reason the team's legacy is virtually living on teams.
Senior, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Yes, right. So brings me to my next question, and changes have been made. So Mensia have announced a new board, a 3-member board made up of 3 billionaires, and obviously, I mean, they would be expected to work with a new CEO and all of that. Do you think this could be the game changer this time around?
No, I mean, this is not the first time. I've always lamented, and I think my brother Kweda Mensah has done same for the last couple of decades. But look, if you, at any point in time when these so-called big millionaires and blah, 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 with all the big titles and big names are appointed, today we are hearing that the new board or the new management team or the 3-member team have announced taking over the financial responsibilities of the club. We hear this all the time. The thing is big in Africa. We form African committees, we bring on rich men and blah, blah, blah. We form a board, we say we are going to quote and unquote. And sometimes it's very funny the way some of these announcements are made, that we are going to relieve Mensia of the responsibility of bearing the burden of financing the club. For how long can this rich man do so? Mr. Aban was in the last management team. They will do their best the first couple of months when the enthusiasm is very high, when there is euphoria. After a couple of months, I mean, no, they don't have bottomless pit of resources. Kotoko's traditional financing mechanism has been since decades ago, have been through their funds, purchase of tickets, participation in team events and stuff, where they have to dole out some money to be able to. And that's how they finance the club all along, from the 30s through the 50s, 70s, and the 80s, the glory days. Things have changed now, and I expect that Kotoko will also change things.
Yeah.
Teams like Alice have been able to organize themselves through almost 120 years, have been able to organize themselves very well. I'm sure 1907, when they formed the club, to about 1950 or 1960, the financial model of Ali was different. Now that we realize that there's a need for corporate engagement and stuff like that. Remember, as far back as 20 years ago, Ali was in partnership with Coca-Cola, Vodafone, many of these multinational companies. And that's why they were generating a lot of money. So if you think that non-shareholding management members or board members, and I'm saying these 3 people who have been appointed, just like the previous numbers of people who were appointed as board members, management team members, none of them held 1% share in the club. If you think that a person who is a non-shareholding member will have to spend his or her personal resources to finance a club that he doesn't have controlling interest in, then you are just dreaming. They come in, sometimes they just want their name to be heard. And I'm not saying, I appreciate the job that some of these people have done. As a child I saw Elite and I where we are, St. Mensa, Kafalantima, and Sadmala, thousands of people who, in so many ways, have contributed to the club. But these things are not sustainable. I remember when the Bokunti administration came to office, the team didn't have money. Few times we had to, and I'm saying we, because I was part of some of these kids, we had to talk to some rich men at one point or another when we were going to certain locations. For example, I'll give you an example. One day we were going to play Heart of Lion. One of our culture supporters who has some financial strength is the owner of Shojamai Company Limited, Mr. Kubi. I called him and he also go and find out the cost of hotels and blah, 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 camping for the 3 days at home so that the team can go. We did that. I called Gordon Bloody. He did that. Within a matter of minutes, we have gotten the bill. I called the man. He said, come for the money. I went for the money, gave it to the management team. I remember Kennedy and Zico. And that's how we were able to finance that trip. Those things don't come every day. Because tomorrow you cannot go to the same person when you are going to play, let's say, Dreams FC in Daewoo or whatever, and then call on the same person to do so. So we must have sustainable financial inflow, financial inflows to be able to run the club in modern time. These businessmen, many of them, and as we know, many of the modern businesses run on credit. Okay, they take bank loans and start to run their business and stuff. There's an extent to which they can send personal resources into a club that they don't owe. without thinking that it will not even collapse their personal finances and their businesses eventually. Because when their businesses collapse, I don't think the club is there to bring them back or sustain them. And that is where my issue has been. So I don't think there's anything new.
Well, all what you've proposed, I'm sure the board would possibly be considering in this new era, and that would bring us to the conversation of a CEO. A lot of the things you said in terms of trying to make sure there's enough money for the club to make it sustainable financially would be put down at the doorstep of the CEO. There's talk about the appointment of a new CEO. Names have come up. Nana Aponsa has come up. And then we also have George Efriye's name in the thick of things. Fred Achi's name has been mentioned as well. What do you make of these three names? And if Kumasi Asante Kotoko would have to make a decision to appoint any of them, in your own estimation, which of these names could be suitable for the club? Most suitable for the club? Let me put it that way.
I think they are all fine gentlemen. We see George as the vice president of the FA formerly. Nana Aponsa had his own challenges, but I'm sure he must have learned a lot of things from the challenges. My younger brother, Frank Ayew, has also had experience with other clubs, as Gold, Games FC, his experience in CAF inter-club competitions. All these people, and probably many more, are very qualified. But I don't think at Kotoko, the matter is who becomes the CEO. I think Kotoko's problems begin from the ownership. Decisions taken at the ownership level is what drives Kotoko. You can bring in a CEO, probably even if he has worked at FIFA or former FA president or vice president or whoever, all the names that you've mentioned. If you don't have the right policies and programs to work with, and you get to a point where at any point in time, your intuitions drive you to take certain decisions back and forth, the team will never progress. So I don't think physically it's about a CEO. The team must have its own strategy so that whoever is appointed, whether it's a CEO, whether as a general manager or whatever position that they ascribe to, whoever is running the day-to-day business of the club, will be able to work within those frameworks so that it doesn't become like Rosu Bempa is a new CEO, and therefore my ideas and my intuitions and stuff, whatever I dream of at night, becomes the next day.
Sporty FM, the voice of sports.
There must be quantity. I mean, if you work in any organization, I work for the Federal Health Service, and I don't think many of the things that I do are driven by my personal beliefs. These are the rules and regulations as to what you can do, where you can go, how you can, and even sometimes financing schemes, how you can get money, resources to be able to finance the facility and blah, blah, blah. All these things are programmed in a way so that it doesn't become, you don't have that wide discretion to do things when you feel today we are being asked to go, and the next time when things are okay, they want to bring in a new person. But you do so, and you always keep changing management. I will always cite Ali as my model club in Africa. A team that will be, I think Ali will be 120 years next year. I think they were from 1907 or so. So next year they'll be 120 years. We've had only 17 club chairmen, club CEOs. The current CEO, Mahmoud El Khatib, played for the club from I think the late 70s to the early 90s. In fact, 1983, 82 when they won the Champions League, and then the year after when Kotoko began to also win. He was the top striker for the player, the top striker for the team. He has gone through the mill and now he's the CEO. Okay? Yeah. And I don't think Mahmoud runs Ali on the basis of his personal dreams. Ali has got a board, a functional one for that matter. And in fact, for the purpose of qualification, the El Ali board is the second most powerful board in Egyptian business life, behind the board of Egyptology and what do you call it? The board that is responsible for their monuments and archives. Because you know it's a country that relies so much on tourism and stuff like that. So that's the second most powerful board. So they don't just appoint anybody. So if Khatib is working under this board must have had their own benchmarks, they have their own rules and regulations as well. So you have very little discretion to exercise. And because the board has sat down and thought through a lot of things, they believe that by going by some of these laid down rules and regulations, benchmarks and all sort of ways, they'll be able to get the results. And that's the reason why they are getting the results. It's not because somebody wakes up today and thinks that, oh, I must go this way, and then everybody must follow. No. And that is the way Kotoko seems to be going. You cannot run a modern 21st century club with 14th century feudal ideas and programs. You will never get results. Are you surprised that the club is not even able to win domestically, let alone compete in Africa and go beyond the first round over the last 25 or so years. No, it's the reason. The reason is that the team is not well managed, not well structured.
Are we going to ever see a Kumasi Asante Kotoko run with 21st century models, modern trends of the game, best practice in the game, independent of the traditional influence? Are we ever going to see Kumasi Asante Kotoko run that way?
You cannot run Kotoko independently of the traditional influence. That will never happen. That one I can be very certain. But this is it. We should take teams like the English clubs, United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and those big teams that everybody talks about. These are traditional British clubs, run with traditional ideas. Even with the infusion of foreign money, look at Man City, look at Arsenal. There's a lot of money which has come from the Gulf area through oil money and blah, 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 sinking into into English football. At Arsenal, the name of the club has not changed, even though these Emirates people have come in. Their traditional colors have not changed. The way the team has been running over the period has not changed. Similarly, Liverpool and all those who have, because most of these foreign teams, most of these English teams, are basically foreign in disguise. They are owned by foreign owners.
That's true.
You can still have brain on, and I've said this time and again.
This is Sporty FM, the voice of sports.
He has said this millions of times, that we can get corporate attachments. Okay, the companies are bound. Kotoko has got a very rich history. Anybody who you approach to work with Kotoko, if you have a team like Kotoko with all this great history, tradition, and everything, it's much easier selling the club than any of the clubs in Ghana that we know of. And therefore, once you're able to get some of these international corporate partnerships and stuff like that, it helps you to get capital. What Kotoko is not doing is that the team has not had capital injection for a very long time. I've lived in Kumasi for the last 6 years. Until then, I was in Accra at a certain point in time when I was outside of Ghana. I go to Adako Jaki and sometimes I cringe. Go and see the facilities there. If you go to the Opokuwari school, I work not far from Opokuwari. The pitch, the Opokuwari school pitch, is better maintained than Adako Jaki pitch. Everybody knows this. At least at the Opokuwari school pitch, when you get there, the players have the privacy of going into rooms. If you know the OAS pitch, they have rooms, just like the Pajo one, where players can have the privacy of changing if they want to change and blah, blah, blah. It's not the same at Kotoko. This is a secondary school pitch, a high school pitch, compared to a so-called professional club pitch. So if you're not injecting capital, and don't expect these board members want to build you a new or some modern training complex, or administrative block, or players and staff residential facilities. No, they will never do that. Because what's in it for them? Because today they've come in, the applause is very high. Once they begin to invest some capital, or invest some personal resources, a time will come when they will be asked to leave. How are you going to retrieve your investment in the club? So until the person is made to know, believe, and accept that he's a shareholding member at a certain point in time, even when he invests money into the system, he can recoup his money. Football is investment. There's no way any person would think in personal capital, personal money, personal wealth. For example, if somebody has something to do, there are times that we play games, people get excited, and so I'm giving 100,000 to the players. Those are things that come once every time.
Yeah.
You've heard of Alaji Lamini. This is football watching and modern young men who have resources. At a certain point in time, when the team is in crisis, we are coming to Chema or coming to Accra to play, somebody will tell you, I'm bearing the entire cost of the travel, accommodation, feeding, travels, and everything. There are certain times that I've seen people pay for the team's air ticket to fly the whole team to United to Accra. But those things are just once every year because you only play people once in Accra. But to get somebody who invest money, buy quality players, the extent that Kotoko has not had a single player start the Blasters in the last 15 years. I hope it's very painful. 1982, as a young boy, I saw 8 Kotoko players play in the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations game against Algeria, a game we won 3-2. That eventually got Ghana the last African Cup of Nations trophy, after which we've not gone closer to even the first. This is what we're talking about. And now this team cannot even vote for players in the local town team. Not to talk to the national under 20 team. What's the difference between Jim Presty, any of the new upcoming, young, smartly modeled, small size clubs, small size management clubs and Kotoko.
Right.
Except that maybe the difference is the color, the history of the club. That's the only thing. But Kotoko is no different from this because Kotoko probably cannot even compete for players, signing players from some of these clubs because the money is not there. If you check the roster of any of the teams that are currently playing the country,
this is Sporty FM, the voice of sports.
Of the country, Tanzania, the Maldives clubs, Angolan clubs, have got players, international players, signed from different parts of Africa.
That's correct.
Come as far as Brazil, if you look at Mamelodi Sundowns, and that is how you're able to get quality players. The fact that you don't have a single player who even sits on the bench of the Black Stars. Today, if you call 70 Black Stars players, I doubt whether you can find one Kotoko player in it. 70 players to go to them. I don't think you invite in one Kotoko player. Tell me if there's anybody there.
Right, I agree with you. Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on the Kotoko space and we'll continue following proceedings and we'll see what they come up with in the next few days with regards to the appointment of a CEO and a new coach for the club. I would like to say a big thank you to you, Ayew, for joining us on the show this morning.
I'm also welcome.
And hopefully we'll catch up with you in the next few days as and when Kumasi Asante Kotoko make new appointments. And that was Ayew Bempa. He's a veteran sports journalist. He's followed Kotoko through and through. He's worked in different capacities as somebody who's been close to the management committees of Kumasi Asante Kotoko in the past. And sharing his thoughts on developments at Kumasi Asante Kotoko these days and with the new appointment of a board and what he thinks should work for the club. Very, very good insight in there. Very, very, very good takes he's had there. We'll see how things pan out at Kumasi Asante Kotoko. There's still a lot to talk about on the show this morning. We'll be moving away from the subject of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. We'll go into the English Premier League in a bit. Michael Ayew is still on the line. He's joining me from 91.3 FM, Sporty 91.3 in Kumasi. But you can share your thoughts with us, 0542571061, 0542571061. If you want to speak about the Kumasi Asante Kotoko issues, yes, you are free to send us a WhatsApp message, and we'll be glad to share your thoughts with the rest of the world. Sporty FM is live on X at Sporty FM _, on Instagram at Sporty FM _, and on Facebook at Sporty FM. Well, I have great news for you. Have you gotten your Polytank Sumo Super yet? If not, this is your month to save. Get 10% off the premium multi-layer Sumo Super Tank from now till the end of the Ghana month. And yes, this promo is nationwide. Let's celebrate our heritage together. Built with advanced multi-layer technology and reinforced superior durability, Sumo Super is designed to last, giving you peace of mind for your home, project, or business. Don't miss this limited time offer. Visit any Polytank outlet today, ask for Sumo Super, and save over 1,000 Ghana cedis. Polytank, the original, always the best. Papano Ankasa. Polytank says, beware of fraudsters. Polytank does not request for Momo online. So get your Polytank Sumo Super and get 10% off this month of March. And a lot of us want to go to the World Cup in Canada and USA. Yes, you want to go and cheer the Black Stars. You want to visit United States of America for the first time. Then you have to follow Nantiye to the World Cup. You have to walk well to the World Cup. You have to follow Nantiye to the World Cup. Football's biggest moment is upon us, and if you want to be part of the journey to the United States of America and Canada, so are we. 90-year travel advisors and Venture G Travel are taking Ghana to the World Cup in United States of America and Canada. For visa assistance and international flights to hotel stays, match tickets, complete travel coordination, we manage every detail so you can travel with confidence. And this is about careful planning. This is about trust. This is about reliable support from start to finish. This is more than a trip. Visit the Accra office at Abladi Road, Kanda, opposite Mount Crest University, or give them a call now. Give them a call on 059 125 8275. 059 125 8275 or 059 6738 545. 059 6738 545. You can send them a WhatsApp message on 055 221 2650. 055 221 2650. And for those of you who are international, those of you who are abroad, you can send them a WhatsApp message on +1 571 22 96 900. +1 571 229 6900. Send them a WhatsApp message to secure a place at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. 90-year travel advisors and Venture G Travel, your complete World Cup travel partner. We'll take a spot of music. When we return, we'll get into the English Premier League and other matters happening around the world of sports. This is still Sporty Breakfast. You're live on Sporty 106.1 FM in Accra, 102.5 in Takoradi, and 91.3 in Kumasi. This, as always, is Ghana's #1 sports morning show, Sporty Breakfast.
Anything sports.
This is extraordinary. Staggering. Unbelievable.
Sporty FM Gatia, the voice of sports.
For example, give up, spread them on, straight away, not on, monogamous, also, chivo, obey the oppression. Obey the oppression. Obey the oppression. Obey the oppression. Unage, nagam, unage, nagam, bafe penso, to my so, penso, gang, Gareth, 1, 2, Gareth, 1, 2. It really rap and implement it. We win him over your wound, and then Maria, Obiania, bread, you may know. Obey no, that's what now I do. I just a mopper. Mommy says, mommy move, mommy watch, mommy browse, mommy move, mommy spray, mommy ring, oh. Mommy can't obey mopper. Oh, I love it. What's that saying? You're making you know, yeah, bonus so I'm quite sorry. I some to so bad corporate for me. And quite, yes, Shadinama. I can move in your Debbie, sister, obey the upper Shadina.
So Ghana's number one fitness gym, the best gym in Ghana, without doubt, 369 Gym and Wellness Center. They are organizing a walk this Independence Day. So they say, come fit, come fresh, and come celebrate. So 369 Gym and Wellness Center are organizing a 7.8 kilometer walk. The walk starts from 369 Gym and Wellness Center at the Lizzie Sports Complex, would go through the Ghana Link Road, all the way through the Lagos Avenue Allied Oil, and then through to Melcombe Boundary Road, through East Legon Police Station, Starbites, A&T Mall, and then back to 369 Gym and Wellness Center. Should be an interesting one. Lace up and move with us at the first ever 369 walk and aerobics. Starting at 6 a.m., join us at the Lizzie Sports Complex where you find 369 Gym and Wellness Center. To register, just join them or get onto their Instagram page and put in a request to join 369 Fitness Walk. You can send them a WhatsApp on 020-641-0462. 020-641-0462. So that's it for Independence Day. If you want to walk with us, just join us on Independence Day at 6 a.m. and let's do this. But let's get into the English Premier League, and Michael Asarabud is on. Let's get into the results from last night. Newcastle United beat Manchester United by 2-1. Newcastle, with a man down, still found a way to defeat Michael Carrick's Manchester United, and that's Carrick's first defeat in 8 games since he became interim boss of Manchester United. Aston Villa, they played at home yesterday. They welcomed Chelsea. Chelsea beat Aston Villa at Villa Park by 4-1. João Pedro recorded a hat-trick in that game. Brighton at the Amex lost 1-0 to Arsenal thanks to a Bukayo Saka early goal. Fulham, they played at a Craven Cottage. They found a way to lose to West Ham United, who are battling for survival in the English Premier League. Fulham lost that game by 1-0. And Manchester City, after taking the lead twice against Nottingham Forest, found a way to draw that game. 2-2 it ended between Manchester City and Nottingham. The implication, Arsenal have opened a 7-point lead at the summit of the English Premier League table. Now, Michael, let me bring you in. At this point, it's full advantage Arsenal. They have a 7-point lead at the summit of the English Premier League table. They have 67 points. Manchester City have 60. But Arsenal have played a game more than every other team in the Premier League. And there's one game to look forward to tonight. That game would see Crystal Palace take on Tottenham Hotspur. That's one game we'll be watching tonight. But, of course, Arsenal are in a commanding lead, 7 points. Manchester City second, 60 points. Manchester United, they are third on 51 points. Aston Villa, they are fourth on 51 points. And then you have Chelsea in fifth place on 48 points. Liverpool are also on 48 points. All of these teams are chasing top 4 places. But, Michael, last night we saw quite some shocking results. Let me start off from the Manchester City-Nottingham game. It was a game many expected Man City to, easily win against Nottingham Forest. But in the end, they made it hard for themselves. And after that result, they have dropped 2 points in the run-up to possibly catching up with Arsenal and usurping them to win the title this season. What went wrong for City yesterday, and how come Nottingham found a way back into this game after going down twice?
I think it was a spirited performance from Nottingham Forest, and it was because they had a lot at stake. If you judge by where they were prior to the game on the league table, and I want to believe they were hinted of West Ham leading against Fulham, that result would have definitely plunged Nottingham Forest into the 18th position, which is one of the relegation zones, and they wouldn't have wanted that. And then match week 29. So that game was not a typical game where Nottingham Forest just have to play and see if they can get points. They had their future or their destiny on the line, and they needed to fight for it. And they gave a really tough fight. Yes, credit to Manchester City. They went twice ahead, but they could not break the spirit of Nottingham. And Nottingham also is a team that possesses some good individual players, quality. who, when they bring it to bear, can trouble any opponent that they face. And I think yesterday was one of those days, not primarily for the goals they scored, but also the defending. You check that 99th minute clearance from Murillo. It was definitely a ball that was destined for the net. It would have altered the scoreline to make it 3-2 advantage Manchester City. But again, the fighting spirit of this Nottingham Forest team ensured that they did a job up front and also did it defensively to help them to get a point out of this game. I think the spirit of Nottingham Forest could not be defeated, and that is the reason Man City did not get the points that they were supposed to get in that game. Yes, credits to Nottingham Forest for everything that they did. What it means is that it helps their cause in terms of surviving the Premier League and then surviving relegation. And then for City, it dents their title ambitions. It gives Arsenal a very healthy advantage, albeit they have played the game more than Manchester City. I was happy for Antoine Semenyo when he opened the scoring for them. And I believe that when they had been clawed back to 1-1 and they took a 2-1 lead, City would have built on that to win. But you look at City clearly, and there are issues in the team that have still not been addressed. They made a decision to bring on board Ike Donnarumma, but I don't think he's addressed any of the issues that they faced in their goalkeeping department. And for a goalkeeper of his stature, maybe he could have done better in the second goal that he conceded. I think that there are still issues in this Manchester City team, to put it briefly, and they will need to sort it out. And the question was always asked of Arsenal as to whether they could win all their games. And I kept making the point that it needn't be Arsenal who need to win all their games. It must be Manchester City, because Arsenal have proven that they are the best team in the league as it stands now, statistically, and then per their league placing, they are the best team in the league. So if City wants to catch them, and even usurp Arsenal, then they must be winning all their games. And I knew City were going to suffer a jolt along the line, and it has come in the Nottingham Forest game. Let's see their response. I can speak to Arsenal and how they have responded to setbacks. Whenever they have suffered a setback, they have bounced back to win consecutively. What will Manchester City prove? Yes, it is a City team that has won the league the most times since Pep Guardiola joined the Premier League. But this City team is not your perfect embodiment of the City that we knew of old times. This City team is still a team in transition. They aren't the finished article yet. And in certain games, their weaknesses will be exposed. They will not get most of the results as we expect. And I think we need to give Arsenal the credit. Whatever happened yesterday should be us crediting Arsenal for how good they have been so far this season. You check the two games that these two sides played: City versus Forest, Arsenal versus Brighton. Arsenal found a way to win. City, maybe they played eye-pleasing football, but they could not win. So what matters most at this stage is finding a way to win. And I think Arsenal have learned from previous experiences, and they have mastered the art of winning either through ugly means or winning through beautiful means. And the best of both worlds, that is what they are giving us. So to me, they are the best team, and they deserve to be at the top of the Premier League table. It's so sad for City that they will have to lose grounds. But the good thing is that Arsenal capitalized on it, and then it's helped them to establish a 7-point gap. City have an outstanding game, but there are no guarantees that they will win it. Anything can happen. So to me, whatever transpired last night is a clear testament that for this long stretch, Arsenal have been the best team in the league, and it's high time we start giving them their flowers instead of trying to find any possible reason to discredit them and prove why they can't win the league. I think the discussion should be tilted to another perspective: why Arsenal will win the league and why City might not be in a position to catch them.
Let's talk about another team that clearly struggled yesterday, and that's Manchester United. They played most parts of that second half with a man advantage, but still found a way to lose that game against Newcastle. What went wrong for Michael Carrick in yesterday's game? And looking at the opportunity missed, can United still finish in top 4?
Well, I think the match week 29 was a great one for Chelsea, for Arsenal. Not so great for Liverpool, for Man U, Aston Villa, and Man City for various reasons. In the case of Manchester United, they had the opportunity to strengthen their position in the third, strengthen their hold in the third position of the Premier League table. And then they let it slip against 10-man Newcastle United. The Premier League is very unique in its own way. And there are certain grounds when you visit and you are not well prepared, you are not ready, you will be shocked. And that one of such grounds is the St. James Park. Newcastle United actually derive some kind of spirit. They are able to bring to the occasion some energy that is unmatched. And when it happens so, it is difficult for any opponent to play them there. And Manchester United looked like they did not they did not have the right energy to match Newcastle United, even at the point in time where Jacob Ramsey was red carded. I will not attribute United's loss to a certain tactical deficiency, a certain incapability of Michael Carrick or whatever, but it is about the sheer resilience and then the unbreakable spirit of Newcastle United. The occasion called for them to summon the spirit of old that they've used in playing against Manchester United at the St. James Park. And if you check, yesterday's results add to a list of Newcastle staying unbeaten at the St. James Park in 5 consecutive seasons against Man U.
Yeah.
They know how to just bring on board all the spirits that are needed to showcase on the day and then get the result. And that they did. They had the right mindset, the right approach, and then they were of the right spirit to go have a go at Manchester United. And it was always going to come that against such opponents, where United need to dig deeper than they have so far under Michael Carrick, they will be found wanting. If this game had been played at Old Trafford, it would have been a different story. But the stage meant Newcastle had something that looks almost inexplicable, but it was that extra that pushed them at the expense of Man U. Just check the goal that Will Osula scored, the second goal. He basically made that goal, but he was fooled by the drive, the belief that something could actually happen. Yes, you can fault Tyrell Malacia for allowing him a lot of space, and I think that was very bad defending. If you are to look at it from that point, you don't allow the attacker to cut in, and then you don't allow him much breathing space. Tyrell Malacia allowed these 2 instances, and the longer that this traveled, the more it emboldened the belief of Osula that something could actually happen from that instance. And he took a shot, and definitely it went into the net. It was a day made for Newcastle. There are days like that where no matter what you do, it is not enough to win you the game. And Manchester United suffered something like that. Then it is a setback. How do they bounce back? That feeds into the second question he asked as to their chances of challenging for the top 4 position. I believe, yes, United would, because we are getting into the business end of the season where teams that are fighting for European places, as it stands now in the Premier League, are also competing in Europe. Aston Villa are still in Europe. There is Chelsea, there is Arsenal, there is Liverpool, and these teams have divided attentions. That is not the same for Manchester United. They just have to switch focus to playing in the Premier League and doing well. And I think with the squad that they have, yes, they will likely suffer setbacks like the Newcastle game, but they should be in a position to prioritize getting results in most of the matches that they play in, and then put them in a very sure position of qualifying for the Champions League. They have a squad, they have a playing body that is capable of doing it. But they will need to match that up with the mentality, the character, the ability to bounce back from a setback. And I think United have it from what I see. The leaders in their team, like Bruno Fernandes, Carlos Casemiro, they are the ones who are supposed to speak words of encouragement to these players in the dressing room. And then it will lift them up and then get them back on track. But I have no doubt that United will qualify for the Champions League.
Talking about teams coming back, Chelsea came from 3 without a win to beat Aston Villa by 4-1 at Villa Park. That was quite a shock of a result because Aston Villa themselves have been struggling lately, but to lose by 4-1 after taking the lead against Chelsea was quite shocking. What do you make of Chelsea's return to form, especially at Villa Park yesterday? And yesterday, interestingly, Rosinho made some interesting changes. He dropped Sanchez for Jorgensen. That was quite a shocker in that one. Take us through why Rosinho made that decision and the performance of the team itself. Pedro hitting a hat-trick and all. Let's get into Chelsea and their performance yesterday.
Well, to start with the decision to bring on board Philip Jorgensen in place of Sanchez, Jorgensen is more comfortable with playing the ball with his feet and against opponents like Villa, who press you high. Oli Watkins and the other attackers at Villa have, including Morgan Rogers, will not settle. They are effective in the press. They will trigger a press and make it uncomfortable for the opponent they play against to build up from the back. So Chelsea needed a change in profile. Sanchez, yes, he can distribute the ball. And if you observe Liam Rosinha, since he's been on board, he's converted his goalkeeper into an 11th outfield player. So the goalkeeper plays a part in the build-up. And when Chelsea are far advanced in the opponent's half, the goalkeeper likely comes out of his box and then situates himself at the D just before you enter the penalty box of Chelsea. So he needs his goalkeeper to play a part. Now, Jorgensen's passing distribution and then accuracy is higher than that of Sanchez. Sanchez has also shown that he's prone to making errors if you put him under the slightest of pressure. And so against an opponent like Villa, who also press, it was always going to be Liam Rosinha deliberating between going for Sanchez or going for Jorgensen. And I think Jorgensen fitted the role that the coach expected him to play, and also the opponent that Chelsea were facing. And the evidence was laid bare before our eyes when the game actually commenced. You could see that Jorgensen was very composed in possession, he was calm, and then he was able to distribute the balls very, very well. And it did not cause Chelsea much trouble. Now to Chelsea's win. I think they were helped by certain factors. Some they did right, some because Aston Villa did not have certain personnel in their team. If you look at the Villa squad that played the game yesterday, it was minus John McGinn, it was minus Boubacar Kamara, and it was minus Ayew Tielemans. On a normal day when these players are fit and available, at least 2 of them will start in a game like this. John McGinn, for instance, he is the engine of this Aston Villa team, not just their midfield. He drives them forward. If they will have intensity, he's the one that actually lights the fire to bring that intensity into their team. He's the incendiary element that is able to spark some fire element in this Aston Villa team. And so when he is not there, it kills that kind of vibe. And Villa are left looking for inspiration from elsewhere. Again, Boubacar Kamara is your smart midfielder who does a solid job in protecting the back line and also playing a part in the build-up play. When he's absent, it leaves a certain vacuum to be filled. Then Douglas Luiz is a brilliant player. He got the first goal yesterday, but he doesn't have that fitness to match the Douglas Luiz we knew that played for Villa some seasons ago. He, due to his stint at Juve, Nottingham Forest, he's not had a lot of minutes under his belt, and it's affected him. So he can give you some solid minutes, but that will be for the opening 40 minutes. But after that, anything that happens is just him trying to catch his breath and him not having enough energy to match up to what the opponent is offering. So I knew at a point in time, Villa were going to be exposed by that, and that clearly told. They started the game brightly, but as the minutes wore on, Villa's influence waned, and Chelsea began to have a stranglehold on the game. And then they started to control and dominate play. And the moment Chelsea got that equalizer, it was the needed impetus to drive them on, to give them more belief. And again, Chelsea were helped by another factor. VAR decisions. If that Oli Watkins goal had entered, it would have altered the dynamics of the game. But the moment VAR had to intervene and say it was offside, which was rightfully so, it built the Chelsea team, their confidence further. And when they scored the second goal, and then VAR had to rubber stamp it and say, yes, that was a clean goal, Chelsea felt it could be their day, and they did not look back from then. But there are some important elements of this Chelsea team that when they are not available, Chelsea does not click. Reece James, Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and then on the basis of form, Joao Pedro is putting his name in there. But the earlier mentioned three, I think if they are fit and ready, Chelsea have like 30% to 40% chance of getting a positive result against any opponent, whether big or small, whether on form or not. If Reece James is fully fit, if Caicedo is fully fit and Enzo Fernandez is fully fit, it gives Chelsea a better chance of getting a result against any opponents they play. And then the form of Joao Pedro, I think it is gradually shaping up to be like the decision that Chelsea was signing for 55 million is looking like a bargain because he embodies everything you expect from a modern day attacker. Joao Pedro has the ability to play a part in the build-up. He can dribble, he can pass, he has excellent movement, judging by the 2 goals he scored before he got his hat-trick. Then he also can finish as well. At the Club World Cup, he was an eye-opener. He opened a lot of the eyes of the Chelsea fans to what he's capable of. But when he started the season, along the line, his form suffered. But under Liam Rosinia, he's rediscovered his mojo. He's produced 10 goals in 12 games under Rosinia. Yeah. Overall, he has 21 or 22 goal contributions in his first 21 goal contributions for Chelsea in his first season. And that is very impressive. And you have to give him the credit. I think the quality that he has, and when he's platformed into this Chelsea team, it brings the best out of him. And there seems to be some kind of understanding between himself and then the creators in the Chelsea team. Now, Enzo Fernandez knows how to play the passing to Joao Pedro. Cole Palmer knows how to play a pass to him. And that is actually bringing the best out of him. And then he has a coach that has foreknowledge of how or the kind of player that he is. And then he is trying to bring the best out of him. I think if he has found himself in the right environment and the way that things are going, he is gradually writing his name that when the World Cup comes, he should be seriously considered to be the starting striker for the Brazilian national team. Brilliant performance. But it was a night where Chelsea met the right opponent. Other factors at play helped Chelsea's cause, and then they actually did deliver. It was a perfect night for Chelsea, and it was all made beautiful, judging by Liverpool losing, Manchester United losing, Aston Villa themselves losing, and Chelsea covering up in terms of the ground between themselves and those ahead of them.
Finally, and a quick one, Michael. West Ham, they, got a good win against Fulham to keep their survival hopes alive. What a result that was for them at Craven Cottage.
Definitely, they needed that. And Crescencio Somerville has showed that since Nuno came, and then there was a personal meeting he had with Somerville that he could offer more. He's actually living up to it. He's producing the goods for them, getting them the goals. And this was a very important result because they need to lift themselves from the relegation position. And if you need that, you need to get results not just at home, but also away. And that was the best response they could give after suffering that heavy defeat to Liverpool. So it was good for them. It's a London derby. Again, it helps you to rub it over your opponent and all that. So a very positive result for West Ham. But they will need more than just the 3 points against Fulham to help them sustain a relegation fight and stay in the Premier League, because Leeds, Nottingham Forest, and all the other teams that are not well placed on the table will also be trying to get points. So West Ham will need to be consistent.
Right, Michael. Michael, let me say a big thank you to you for joining us on the show this morning. Hopefully, I will be back tomorrow to preview the weekend's round of games and also to get into a few of the matters arising from CAF, because definitely we'll be getting news on as to whether the women's WAFCON will be going on as scheduled and will be hosted in Morocco as planned. So we'll get into all of that hopefully tomorrow morning, and then we'll get into the local league as well and check out what will be happening this weekend in terms of some of the games. So let me say a big thank you to you, Michael, for joining us on the show. Have a super Thursday.
Thank you very much, Raymond.
Great.